Om Sri Ganeshaya Namaha. Om Sri Saraswatyai Namaha. Om Sri Chinmaya Sadgurave Namaha. Om Sadashiva Samarambham Shankaracharya Madhyamam Asmadacharya Paryandam Vande Guru Paramparam. Om Sri Chinmaya Sadgurave Namaha. ഹരി ഓം. എല്ലാവർക്കും എൻ്റെ നമസ്കാരം. ശങ്കര ജയന്തി ആശംസകൾ നേർന്നുകൊള്ളുന്നുവല്ല. My salutations to everyone and my hearty greetings on the occasion of Sri Shankara Jayanti today. Sorry, I started in Malayalam first. The habits die hard, that is why it is like that. All right. As it was announced, we are going to see a particular text of Bhagavan Shankaracharya, that is Sri Dakshinamurti Ashtakam, also known as Dakshinamurti Stotram. It is also known as Dakshinamurti Upanishad itself. That shows the significance attached to the text. The text is so important. That's why this is even known as the Dakshinamurti Upanishad. There is another Dakshinamurti Upanishad by the same name, one of the Upanishads, but this one also is known as Dakshinamurti Upanishad because the content is purely Upanishadic. Now, this is a serious text. I shall try to make it as less serious as possible, because I don't want you to yawn in between and get bored. To begin with, I would like to tell you a story. You might wonder, hey Swami, this Dakshinamurti Stotram, you said such a serious text and you are going to narrate a story. Is it story time? Now, this particular story has a message. That's why I would like to share this with you. Normally story begins with once upon a time. So this also, I also begin with once upon a time, long time ago, there was a very strange kingdom. Am I audible enough? Am I audible? There was a strange kingdom. Strange because normally, the kingdom, the dynastic rules take place. But here it's not like that. It is more popular and democratic, I should say. But not through election and all that. But another way, there anybody can become a king. That is the strangeness of the kingdom. Anybody can become a king. And that is decided by lots. You will have to register, and then if you win the lottery, if your turn comes, your chance comes, you are declared the king. But there's a limitation. Only for 5 years you can be the king. Not for you can't opt for a second term like in the United States and as many terms as in India. No, only one term lasting for 5 years. Once the 5th year gets over, and you will have to step down, you will have to leave. If you don't, you will be checked out. So 5 years, but these 5 years, you can enjoy as much as you want. No restrictions, no control, no public accounts committee, nothing of the sort. Exchequer is plenty, the treasury is plenty, money plenty in all abundance, but only 5 years. And now naturally, these 5 years, you can live like a real king, enjoying everything. But there is one more condition, that is, after the expiry of the 5-year period, the people will come, the what you call the soldiers would come and take you forcibly from your office or your palace, and then you will be taken to a far-off island, a deserted island infested with wild animals and reptiles and whatnot, and you will be ferried across to that island. So once your period is over, your tenure is over, you will no longer be allowed to live in the same kingdom. So you will have to go. No way. But then, we are all short-sighted. Naturally, everybody, because this 5 years, total enjoyment, everything, the people are carried away by that. So many would opt for this 5-year term, but at the end of the 5 year, and it is a tragedy, it's a disaster. Nobody wants to live, but then you have to. That's the thing. And whether you like it or not, you will be carried away and forcibly dumped in the island. No choice, absolutely no. And many came and went the way they had to, without any choice, without any options. And while going, of course, it is a very tragic scene. The fellow doesn't want to go, but he has to. He will be dragged, he will be pulled, he will be pushed to the boat, and he will be taken and will be transported to that island, and then the boat will come back. You are there left alone. You are marooned there, so to say. Many people had their turns and had their fate this way. And then one smart guy came on the scene. It was his turn. He also became the king and enjoyed all the facilities, all the wealth, everything. Because there, as I said earlier, absolutely no restriction. And the at the end of the fifth year, as usual, the soldiers came. Sir, your time is up. And unlike his predecessors, this man was as cool as cucumber, you would say. He was not worried. He was all smiles. And the soldiers were confused. This man is a fool, idiot, or what? What's going to be in store for him, he doesn't know. Sir, we are going to that island. Which island? Yes, I know. I know because all my predecessors went that way. I will have to follow that. I know. Sir, you are still smiling? Yes, of course I am smiling. Huh? Keep smiling. So, the soldiers were surprised. What happened to this man? And then he was taken as usual to the boat and he was taken to that island. But he was as happy as ever. And when the soldiers went there with the man, they found so many big mansions, so many gardens, everything raised in that island. And another kingdom was built. Another township, big city was built. Naturally, this man is not unhappy at all. Right? See the reason for his being cool, being happy, being cheerful, smiling, you got it? Because during the 5-year term, when he could enjoy everything and the whole wealth was at his disposal, what he did, every day he would remember that the 5th year end is going to come sooner or later. So he was building up another kingdom there. Intensely aware, acutely aware every day of the day of judgment. So he did what he should do. That is, build up another kingdom. So you got the point? But what is the point? There is a point. You know what's the point? Point is that we have been endowed with our body, mind, and intellect, and the gift of life. And it is these things are all at our disposal. But the day of judgment is sure to come. Are we aware of it? When we are enjoying life we should enjoy, no doubt about it, as the king did. But are we aware, are we conscious of what's going to happen? Or how the life, even the present life can be enjoyed at its best? Because only if you have a good frame of mind, happy frame of mind, you can enjoy even the worldly life today. If you don't have a good frame of mind, you can't enjoy a lunch or dinner or breakfast, whatever it. You should have a good frame of mind always. How to bring about, how to usher in, how to bring in that frame of mind and maintain it forever. Stabilize it. So that the key to that secret is what the Vedanta gives. This is the point driven home through this small story. So we must be like that smart guy who became the king. When we are born and when we are living on this earth, we must know that how to live this life and what is the goal that we should aim at, the ultimate goal. Ultimate goal is death, is it? No, ultimate goal is life itself. That is the beauty. That is what the Vedanta Vijnana, Vedanta Jnana, Vedantic knowledge tell us. Dakshinamurti Stotram is actually, as I said earlier, it is a short Upanishad. All the content is Upanishadic. And the goal of life to reach. So what is the goal of life? When we study any text, any Vedantic text, if the question is asked, why do you want to study Vedanta? Or why do you want to study this Laghu Vurti or Dakshinamurti Stotram? What is the purpose? What's the intention? No, we want to achieve the ultimate goal of life. What is that ultimate goal of life? Moksha. You say moksha because I think you are all initiated into the Vedanta. So you would answer, ready answer moksha. But what is this moksha? And the general concept among the Vedantically illiterate people, they think moksha as something post-death experience or phenomenon. But as Vedantic students, we know fully well that it is not a post-death phenomenon. Shankaracharya very clearly makes it to us that it is Jivan Mukti that we should aim at. Jivan Mukti. Jivan Mukti means not Jivas Mukti. The Vigraha is not Jivas Mukti. No. Jivan Mukti. Jivan is, like in English, there is a gerund. In English grammar, gerund, or what you call that, the present participle. Getting liberated while still alive or while being alive. Living, you become liberated. Living, when still alive. This is the thing, Jivan Mukti. Meaning what? Actually, what is this Mukti, Moksha? Because when somebody passes away, we would say, he has attained moksha. Okay, good humoredly we say somebody has attained moksha, but how do we know he has attained moksha? Or can we say he has attained Swarga Prapti, Swargaleen, Swargaleen they say. Well, it could be Naragleen also. One can go to Naraga also. So you should be very clear. What is this moksha? Moksha is not equated with the Swarga. Swarga is something which we get after death if we deserve it again. No? If we deserve it, if our karmas are such that we are entitled to Swarga, we will get Swarga. Otherwise, whichever world we are entitled to, we will go there. That's all. But moksha is something that we should aim at achieving here and now. So we should not keep postponing things. For example, this camp. So you have all registered for this, attending this camp. But everybody, some of you might have, persuaded your friends also. They cannot be dragged because only if that vasana is there, that samskara is there, that interest is there, that tendency is there, that person can be attracted to a camp like this. So naturally, all of you deserve compliments because thanks to God's grace, you have been blessed with the samskara, and that is why you are in these sessions. Otherwise, horsepower can't bring you. Right? Because samskara is not there. People who don't have that samskara, they can't be dragged to a class. However, whatever force you deploy, whatever force you exercise, they can't be brought. But this your samskara spontaneously, naturally brings you to classes like this. So Vedantically, moksha is something to be achieved here and now. This is very important. Yesterday, Advayantaji's class. So I hope you remember what he said. Moksha is not something, or knowledge, moksha comes through knowledge, and knowledge is not something that creates something. Karma creates something, but knowledge doesn't create. Knowledge is revealed to you. Knowledge is not the result of any action. But there are many actions, and actions are there. They are all intended to purify our hearts. A lot of unwanted things, malinyas, dirts are accumulated by us, and in fact they form our mind, intellect, and this has to be cleared of all the malinyas, all the dirts, all the impurities, and for that we may have to do some tapas. All our sadhanas are aimed at that. Now, about Sri Shankara Bhagavad Pada, who was authored this text. I hope all of you are in the know of, you are aware of the great contributions of Bhagavad Pada. And as we said yesterday, the maternal home of Shankaracharya is where our Chinmaya International Foundation, Adi Shankara Nilayam, is located. And we were all to have assembled there, but then it so happened that this COVID-19 has held us back at our own homes, and still we don't miss the sessions thanks to the technology. The modern technology, it's great blessings. Online classes we can help galore, any number. Only thing is you should have net connection and these devices, whether mobile phone or laptops or whatnot. Now, Bhagavan Shankaracharya, when was he born? Historically speaking, they say from 788 to 820 AD. This is what the modern historians say. But then there's a large number of scholars, especially scholars based on this Kanchi Kamagoti Mutt and all that, because they have records dating back to some 300 BC to 400 BC. So you can say between 500 BC and 800 AD. That is, during this period, Shankaracharya lived with his mortal frame on this earth. And he was born in Kerala, all these things you must be knowing. And then how he created a great renaissance in Hindu Dharma. There are so many cobwebs in the Hindu Dharma of those times. On the one hand, the Karmagandhis are divided into so many groups, each one claiming to be the leader. And on the one hand, and some of them resorting to even himsa, sacrifices of innocent animals. That is on the one hand. And on the other, this Bauddhas. Bauddhas arguing that there is no God. Hey, remember, Buddha never said there is no God. He kept quiet about it. But The Buddhas, the followers of Buddhas, they said Shunyavada. There is nihilism or there is no God. So different argumentations, disputations, and all these things were going on when Shankara entered onto scene. So they say Shankara was an avatar. You remember, you are all familiar with Gita verse, Yada yada hi dharmasya glanir bhavati bharata abhyuthanam adharmasya tadatmanam srijamya. So from time to time, from age to age, Lord has promised that I would incarnate, I would come to the world, and when is that? When the adharma is riding high, the wave of adharma is riding high, and dharma is deteriorating. Dharma is on a low ebb. And when it happens the worst, the avatar takes place. And Bhagavan Shankaracharya entered the scene at such a period of time when it was a decisive point in the history of time, that unless somebody of Shankara's stature had come and revitalized, revived, and rejuvenated the Hindu Dharma, it would have gone far, far worse. So at the correct juncture, Shankara was born in Kaladi. Actually, Shankara was born. The birth took place in our Adi Shankara Nilayam. But then later, earlier historians, they never knew about the Melparur Mana and Piravam, where we have our Adi Shankara Nilayam. Everybody spoke of Kaladi. After 2 years of spending his early babyhood at Adi Shankara Nilayam, he proceeded to Kaladi. In fact, he learned walking at Kaladi. That is Kaladi. Kaladi in Malayalam, the foothold, the footing, going on foot. Kal means foot. Adi means he making steps. The footsteps he started making at Kaladi. Okay. Now, in the childhood itself, he started, showing so many unusual things, unusual, extraordinary brilliance. With a child of his age, the breastfeeding is not over. Even at that stage, he started showing his powers. And there are so many miracles which he is believed to have performed. We are not going into all that. But at the age of 8, the story goes that he wanted to take sannyas, but mother wouldn't allow. But they say with his Atma Shakti, he created a scene, a dramatic scene, that he went into the river, Periyar River, flowing by. It's called the Purna River. And then a crocodile caught hold of him. They say with Atma Shakti, he created this crocodile. Shankara himself created this. So that mother did not allow him to take sannyas. So he wanted permission from mother. Then only he would take sannyas. So he stage managed it, so to say. A crocodile was created and crocodile caught hold of him. And Amma, at least now, because I am going to be eaten away by this crocodile. At least now you give me permission to take sannyas. If you take sannyas, sometimes things may change. Mother gives sannyas. Mother gave permission to take sannyas. And then, of course, she can't, withhold her promise. So he took sannyas. Mentally he took sannyas, but formally he was initiated later. And then he proceeded to Guru his guru on the banks of Narmada, Govinda Bhagavad Pada, that is on the banks of Narmada. There also he is reported to have, performed certain miracles and all that. But the moment Govinda Bhagavad Pada, his guru, met him and interrogated him, he realized that here is a boy who is not a usual one, very, very extraordinary, and he initiated into that knowledge of Vedanta. And then he started his peregrinations, his travel around the country. And they say, before he was 16, he was given only 16 years of life. This longevity was 16 years. The initial longevity, life span was 16 years only. But before 16 years, he completed all the rachanas, all the compositions, the bhashyas of the major Upanishads. Isha, Kena, Kata, Prasana, Mundaka, Mandukya, Aitare, Taittiriya, Brihadaranyaka, Chandogya, all these major Upanishads, Kaivalya Upanishad. So all these Upanishads, bhashya, beautiful, deep bhashyas he composed, wrote. And then Bhashya for the Brahma Sutra and the Bhagavad Gita. These three form the Prasthanatraya, the rational foundation for Hindu Dharma was established. And it seems Vyasa Bhagavan, so Vyasa Bhagavan is the original author of Brahma Sutras, and Bhashya, the commentary by Shankara, was seen by Vyasa Bhagavan. And he was so happy, and he appeared before Shankara. Shankara was about to leave his mortal coil, and he said, "No, its time is not up. I am giving you another 16 years. And you have to do further mission of rejuvenating the Hindu Dharma, resuscitating it by doing some more things." But by the 16th year, he finished all his writings. Then he started his yatra from Kanyakumari to Mukambi to Tirupati, up to Kashmir in the north, and then to east, to the west, to the north, south, all places he covered. And so many temples were constructed, and so many temples were renovated, and where the pratishtas were done. And in some temples like Badri and all that, he reordered the whole thing. The national integration, the Deshiyodgradhan was well done by Shankara by establishing this four mutts in the four corners of the country. In the east in Puri, in the north in Badari, Jodhpur Mutt, in the west the Dwaraka Mutt in Gujarat, and in Sringeri in the south. So all the four mutts, and then Kanchi Mutt also was established by him. So many mutts, and his disciples were given the responsibility of running these mutts, and the rules were laid down by him how to manage it. All these things were done by Shankaracharya. And then it seems while in Kashmir, there is Sharada Mandir, Sharada temple. All the four gopuras were full of pandits for the four doors. And to enter that temple, he had to argue with all these pandits. He has to win, which he did. And there was Sarvajna Pitha, and when all the pandits were won over by his arguments, rational, intellectual arguments. Then the story goes that the Pandits, the so-called Pandits, who stood as an obstacle to him to enter the Sarvajna Pitha, later on they themselves escorted him to the Sarvajna Pitha. And this is Shankara Bhagavad Pada, the great son of Bharat, who renovated the Hindu Dharma, who rejuvenated it. And the Vedantic knowledge, they say Shankara was the exponent of Advaita Tattva. Advaita Tattva was there from beginningless time in the Upanishads itself. But what he did was he brought it into a system through arguments, through logic, Shruti, Yukti, and Anubhava. These three things. Shruti is the Pramana, that is the Vedas, the Upanishads. Then Yukti, logic, irresistible logic, very subtle logic. And the third one is Anubhava. Anubhava is one's own experience. So these three should agree. And all Shankara's argumentations, everything was based on these three. He would quote the Pramana, the Vedas, and then he would prove logically that how true it is, and also it agreed with the Anubhava, the experience of one's own self. So Shankara became an unassailable phenomenon, an unassailable master. No disputant could assail him logically, rationally, and also with the Pramanas. Thus, he won he entered the Sarvajna Pitha also, and at the age of 32, he left his mortal frame. Where he left is also disputed. Some say in Kashmir, in Kedarnath, some say in Trichur in Kerala. We don't know really where. Even there is a group of people who say in Kanchi. See, these are all immaterial. But then what Shankara has shown us is one thing. That is, he himself has said, there's a sloka, because altogether between 170 to 200 kritis, works he wrote, including Bhashya and this elementary texts and all that. Then stotras. Stotras, very devotion-filled stotras. Alayam, Karunalayam. He was and the embodiment of compassion itself. There are so many stories. We are not going into all that to narrate story one after another. That will take away all our time, and we will not do justice to the text that we have to complete. Okay, so Alayam, Karunalayam. So this stotras and the bhashyas and the prakarana granthas, these three form the major works of Shankara, which comes to around 170 to 200. There are some people disputing that is not Shankara, this is not Shankara's. Anyway, about Dakshinamurti Stotram and Lagu Vakyavarti, it is undisputedly agreed that it is of Shankara. Okay, so in one of the slokas, Bhagavan Shankaracharya says, there are so many things, but I can tell you in half a sloka, Yaduktam Grantha Kotibihi, Slokardhena Pravakshyami, Yaduktam Grantha Kotibihi. So many slokas, so many, but then I can tell you in half a sloka what is there to be learned, what is to be understood. Slokardhena Pravakshyami, Yaduktam Grantha Kotibihi. What is that? Brahma Satyam Jagan Mithya. Slokardhena pravakshami yeduktam granthakodibhi. That is, half of the sloka is over. The remaining half is this one. Brahma Satyam Jagan Mithya Jivo Brahmaiva Naparaha. So all our studies, whether it is Dakshinamurti Stotram or Laghu Vakyavarti or Vakyavarti, Upanishad Bhashyas, Brahma Sutra Bhashyas, all this teaches only this thing. Brahma Satyam Jagan Mithya. And we say, Jivo Brahmaiva Naparaha. See, Brahma Satyam, okay, Brahma is Satyam. Jagan Mithya, oh, it may be Mithya. How are you and I affected? Yes, we are affected. How? Because Jivo Brahma eva na aparaha. Because it concerns you, it concerns me. Vedanta concerns you, it concerns me. Okay. See, if it concerns us, we are immediately alert. Is it not? When you go to a place, you visit a home, and last month, that house owner's daughter's wedding, and you had attended that wedding, and then after 1 month's gap, you are going again. Naturally, what they would show you, the album and video of itself, and you look through the album, your attention will be not on the vadhu or the groom or the bridegroom, but you are looking at where you are. See, on whichever pages you are there, is it not true? When we go through that album, we are trying to find out where all we are there. We are figuring it. Why? Because I am mostly interested in myself. Atmanastu kamaya sarvam priyam bhavati. Everybody loves himself or herself. This is the fact. We are not critically analyzed. That is the fact. Undeniable, unassailable, unchallengeable fact. That I love myself the most. This is said in the Upanishads. The wife loves the husband not for his sake, for her sake. Husband loves the wife not for his sake, but her sake. So, son, daughter, husband, relatives, friends, everyone like that. Because as long as my interests are sustained by so and so, I love her or I love him. The moment somebody comes in the way, stands in the way, my interests are affected, we get cross with him or her. This is what happens, is it not true? So, Atmanastu kamaya sarvam priyam bhavati. Therefore, the very fountainhead of our very source of our love, the very center of our love is none other than oneself. I love myself the most. And I said earlier, we are each one is concerned, or we with Vedanta, or we should concern ourselves with Vedanta, because Vedanta is talking about you and me, nobody else. Nobody else. Jivo Brahma eva na aparaha. You are the center of the world. You and I, each Jiva is the center of the world. And what Bhagavan Shankara says is, what does he say? And you are that. Yesterday, Advaita said, Tat Tvam Asi, or Aham Brahma Asmi. This Mahavakya is from the Upanishads, from the Vedas, so many Mahavakyas. And the major ones are these four, which he said yesterday. Tat Tvam Asi, that thou art, that you are. That means that Brahman, the infinite, the ultimate, the boundless, the all-pervading, the omniscient, the omnipresent, the all-powerful, everything. These are all big words, but what does it mean? it should become meaningful to each one of us. That is where we succeed in studying and understanding and appreciating Vedanta. If we verbalize things too much, if we don't understand, and if we don't wake up ourselves to that absolute truth, until then, we don't enjoy what we know. It is okay. If you are interested, if you have this thing, intellectually you are able to appreciate. Yes, what the Upanishad says, what the scriptures say, it is true. It is true. But intellectual appreciation alone won't do. Intellectual appreciation alone won't do. The knowledge acquired by the intellect, it should percolate into the heart. This is very important. The percolation of the knowledge from the intellect to the heart, to the mind, which needs to be purified from all its contaminations, from all its dirts, from all its impurities. It is then that we are able to experience. So Vedanta should become experiential knowledge. Experiential knowledge. Anubhavadhishthit Gyan. It should be based on Anubhav, Anubhuti, Anubhutika Gyan, experiential knowledge. It is only then when we wake up, when we are awakened to that stage, then we realize, oh, this is what Vedanta is. And in this, this Dakshinamurti Ashtakam is actually a set of 8 slokas, but then Bhagavan Shankaracharya, although he calls it Dakshinamurti Ashtakam, he gives 2 more verses, bonus, additional 2 verses towards the end, the 9th and the 10th one, and there he shares with us some techniques of how to make the knowledge percolate into our heart. The intellectual appreciation is basically required. The theoretical knowledge is necessary. Without knowing the truth, without theoretically appreciating the truth, if we do this and that, we will be groping in the dark. Any sadhana that we do, we should appreciate, we should theoretically, the theory part of it should be understood first. That is why Bhagavan, in the Bhagavad Gita, you will find the first chapter is Arjuna Vishada Yoga. And there Arjuna, in the first chapter and in the beginning of the second chapter, he blurts out so many things. And there is a kind of a despondency, dejection, a disheartened condition on the part of Arjuna. So Bhagavan, and he diagnoses correctly, and the second chapter, from the 11th sloka, he starts teaching him the highest knowledge, meaning the theoretical, that the part of the truth he shares with Arjuna. He imparts to Arjuna. But once the theory is understood, then we have to go to the application level. Supposing, some say that, there is no something like that, there is no dichotomy, there is no bifurcation between theory and knowledge, it is one and the same. That is also true. Because if one with a totally pure mind, when he hears the first time the knowledge, Tat Tvam Asi, or Aham Brahmasmi, or Ayam Atma Brahma, or Prajnanam Brahma, first time listening is enough. Because what should have been done till then, all purificatory things all over, now the mind is pure. But as far as you and I are concerned, our mind is, what it is. Lot of agitations, lot of restlessness, lot of tensions. So first of all, we have to thin out the agitations. Agitations come because of the samskaras, because of the accumulated samskaras. And slowly, when we do the thinning out, for which sadhana is required. So Shankara dedicates the last two slokas, the 9th and the 10th one, to this. Thus, we find the slokas total number 8. And I hope everybody has the text or PDF has been given. Please be ready. The sloka, you are familiar with some Sanskrit slokas, that is in Anushtup Chandas. Anushtup Chandas, simple meter, only 8 letters in each pada, each quarter. Like Dharma Kshetre, Kuru Kshetre. So only 8 letters in each pada. Anushtup Chanda, very easy. But here, there's a difference. It's a little more difficult mrutta or meter chandas. This Dakshinamurti stotra is written in a meter chandas called Shardula Vikrididam. Shardula Vikrididam contains 19 letters in each pada. So we shall talk about it more tomorrow. But today we will just read. I don't know. This I've been given that PDF. Shall we read once? You are ready with the text? Please. Om Vishwam Darpana Drishyamana Nagari Tulyam Nijandargatam. Can you follow me? Please. Vishwam Darpana Drishyamana Nagari Tulyam Nijandargatam. Shall I break and chant? I shall break then. Please repeat after me. Vishwam Darpana Drishyamana Nagari Tulyam Nijandargatam. Vishwam Darpana Drishyamana Nagari Tulyam Nijandargatam. Pashyannatmani Mayaya. Pashyannatmani Mayaya. Bahirivod Bhutam Yatha Nidraya. Bahirivod Bhutam Yatha Nidraya. Together. Pashyannatmani Mayaya. Bahirivod Bhutam Yatha Nidraya. Next pada. Yat Sakshat Kurute Prabodha Samaye. Once again. Yat Sakshat Kurute Prabodha Samaye. Swapmanamevadvayam. Swapmanamevadvayam. Yat Sakshat Kurute Prabodha Samaye. Swapmanamevadvayam. Last, the Pallavi, the refrain. Tasmai Sri Guru Murtaye Namayidam. Tasmai Sri Guru Murtaye Namayidam. Sri Dakshina Murtaye. Sri Dakshina Murtaye. Tasmai Sri Guru Murtaye Namaidam Sri Dakshina Murtaye. Together, just try, because we must be familiar with the slokas also. The chanting should be very facile. That is, without difficulty, you must be able to get through. A few times, if you repeat the line, it will be very easy. And then you will be able to do it anayasena, ayasrahita, without any difficulty whatsoever, you will be able to. Vishwam darpana drishyamana nagari tulyam nijandargatam पश्यन्नात्मनि मायया बहिरिवोत् भूतं यथा निद्रया यत्साक्षात् कुरुते प्रबोधसमये स्वात्मानमेवाद्वयं तस्मै श्रीगुरुमूर्तये नमः श्रीदक्षिणामूर्तये. Can we chant together once again? Can we chant together? Please try. If there are mistakes, don't worry, don't bother. Mistakes will be there. Vishwam darpana drishyamana nagari tulyam nijandargatam pashyannatmani mayaya bahirivot bhutam yatha nidraya yat sakshat kurute prabodha samaye swatmanamevadvayam tasmai Sri Gurumurtaye namaidam Sri Dakshina-murtaye. So it's so beautiful verse. Shardula Vikridam. There are so many Sanskrit slokas in this chandas. In another, in very famous sloka in Narayaniyam in Sanskrit. Is there the first sloka of Narayaniyam, Sri Krishna Sudhi doesn't come to me. Anyway, I will let you hear tomorrow. So this sloka is the first one. Before this, there are some dhyana slokas. I don't think you have been given that, these dhyana slokas. I shall ask Abin to give, if it's possible, to share with you. But we will be taking in detail this first sloka onwards. The other one is dhyana sloka, composed by Shankara himself, probably, or maybe some other Shankaracharyas. So tomorrow our class will be at 7 a.m. in the morning. It's a very nice time to listen to Vedanta, is it not? So those who are interested in Vedanta, any time is okay for them. I need not say morning is, but morning the freshness will be there. And other times also, freshness is something that you can invoke if you are interested. Okay, let us hope that by the grace of Bhagavan Shankaracharya, we will be able to understand something of this when we share, because my knowledge is also limited, and with my limited knowledge, when I share with you, it may have its naturally limitations will be there. So I shall try my best to make it, as I said earlier, as simple as possible. Bhagavan Shankaracharya gives the Upanishadic, this Mahavakya through this. In fact, all the Upanishads are covered. All the Upanishadic statements, all the Mahavakyas are covered through these 8 verses. That's what the Manishis, this is, Panditas say. Okay, we shall close it today. Today, 4:30, Advayantaji's class will be there. And tomorrow we will meet for Dakshinamurti Stotram. We will meet tomorrow morning at 7 a.m. Hari Om. Thank you all. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Sri Gurubhyo Namaha. Hari Om. One announcement, in case you have any doubts, some gray area which I couldn't make clear, please feel free, don't hesitate, please feel free to WhatsApp to me. My WhatsApp number is, you can note down, 94471 55637. 94471 55637. I repeat, 94471 55637. And when you write, please note that should be doubts in shortest, in 2-3 sentences. It should not be very lengthy sentence. Whatever doubts, if some area is not clear, please feel free to ask. We shall discuss in the subsequent class. So today's class, if there is any doubt, today you can WhatsApp to me. So tomorrow's, before we start tomorrow's class, we will clear that. And now suddenly I remember that sloka, Sandra Anandavabodhatmakam Ainupamitam Kaladeshavadibhyam Nirmuktam Nityamuktam Nigama Shata Sahasrena Nirbhasyamanam Aspashtam Dristamatre Punariru Purusharthatmagam Brahma Tattvam Tattavadbhadi Sakshat Guru Pavanapure Andabhagyam Jananam. This is in praise of Guru Vayurappan. So this is Shardula Vikritism meter. I want, at that time it didn't occur to me, and now suddenly a thought wave came. I thought I should share with you. Thank you very much. Hari Om.